Okay, I'm going to tie a fly I haven't tied in a while. This is the carrot nymph. This is a fly I tied quite a bit when I first started tying because the materials and the techniques were pretty easy. I remember seeing that it's really just orange thread and peacock, and those were two materials I had in the beginning. But the way that I do it nowadays, I picked up some of these variations from a profile I saw on Instagram. That is going to be essentially what we have when we're done. It's that orange body with the peacock herl going up the back. And that is pretty much it. So this is a size 10 ahrex 541. That is a barbless nymph hook. And I've got a Firehole black matte stone on there with 0.020 lead-free wire. So we're going to use burnt orange UTC 70. That's going to make up the body and the hot spot on the thorax. So we'll get our thread going right behind the weight. I'll double back that forward, get that into the weight, get thread wraps in there, dam it off at the front. That lead's not going anywhere. Now, throughout the tie, I'm going to want a nice smooth underbody because that's what's gonna make the fly. So right here you can see that UTC is a flat thread, and right now it's all coiled up and round. So if I start wrapping this right now, it's going to kind of behave like a round thread. You can probably see the thread moving. That's because down here my bobbin is spinning and it's trying to unwrap itself. Now the more it unwraps, if you watch that point right there where it hits the hook shank, you're going to see that the thread is going to open up and look flat again. In fact, I'm going to spin it a little faster to speed that up. I went a little far. And you can see that it's kind of flat again. As you make wraps, that thread is going to coil up and basically, coil up onto itself and become round again. So what you're going to want to do is, as you start wrapping the body, you're going to want to stop for a minute, spin your bobbin, and get that thread straightened out again. Because we want to make sure that our body is as flat and smooth as we can possibly get it. We don't really need a prominent tail on this, so I've cut off 4 pieces of pheasant tail here, and I'm going to kind of measure that roughly where I want it. Doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I always adjust my tails after the fact. So get that in there with 3 wraps. I always do 3 because 3 is enough wraps to hold it where you want it, but also allow you to still adjust it. So I'm going to make sure that's on the top of the hook shank, shorten that a little bit. And that's pretty good there. That's about where I want it. So I'm going to hold that tail tight, finish with my wraps as far down as I want to make the body. That's about good right there. All right, now, we have to tie in a couple of materials here, but we have to do them as early as possible because if you tie them in later, you're not going to be able to cover them enough with the thread, so we want them tied in early. So the next thing that I want to tie in is a piece of small gold wire, and wire is a really easy material to tie in on your way back towards the front of the fly. So, some materials like pheasant tail, you're going to want to tie that up here and then wrap down. Wire is just fine to tie in down here and wrap up. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to put a single wrap real loose just to hold it. I'm going to pull it back to align the tip right at the end of the weight. And I'm just going to make touching wraps all the way up to the front. And you can kind of see how that wire just stays put. So wire's a really good material to tie in going back the other way. And if you're trying to save thread wraps and you're trying to make sure that you're not building up too much bulk, that's a good thing to do, is tie in your wire on the way back to the front. Okay, so now what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get our peacock herl tied in, and we're also going to have to build our body. So we're going to kind of do that at the same time here. So I have a peacock eye right here, and I'm going to go down the quill a little bit, and I'm going to pull off 2 pieces of herl that are a little bit on the thinner side. One of the things that I would really recommend is, not everybody has access to this, but if you have anybody in your community that has peacocks and you can get your hands on actual peacock tails, I definitely recommend that you do that, because the store-bought stuff is a lot of times is way too thick, way too bushy. If you get these peacock tails from somebody that actually owns a bird, I'm not sure what they do, if they farm them or what, but those pieces of herl are tighter. The barbs are a little bit shorter and stiffer, and they're just a much better material to tie with. So try to find somebody that owns a peacock. Usually they're more than willing to give you the tails. I mean, they fall off anyway. I have a woman where I work that provides them to me and gives me more peacock than I think I could ever use in my entire lifetime. So we're going to get that tied in, and if you look at the length of our body, what we want to do is take touching wraps and go down about 1/3 of the way and then double our thread back up to the top. And once we get a couple of wraps on there, we can get rid of this excess up here. We'll cover that up as time goes on. But now that I went 1/3 of the way down and came back, I want to check my thread again. So it's not too bad, but you can see that it's kind of round. Well, I say you can see it. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up or not, but right now it's a little balled up. So I'm going to twist it, make it flat again, and now I'm going to go down 2/3 of the way. And all the time that I'm doing this, I'm holding that peacock herl on top of the hook shank. I want it specifically on top. Now, I mentioned earlier that you're going to want to make sure that you get your materials tied in early so that your thread can cover it up. You can kind of see what I mean here. Up here is where we have multiple layers of thread. And right there, all you can see is the body that we want. But as you go down, see how you can still see the outline of the wire? So when you tie stuff in, it's going to take a couple layers of thread to cover all that up. That's why I wanted to get the wire and everything in there as early as possible. If I waited until the end, you're still going to have an orange body, but you're going to see all the stuff that you tied in underneath, and you really don't want that. And this time we're going to go all the way down to the final wrap we made to the tail, and then bring our thread back up. And at that point, you should have a nice, smooth, tapered body, and we look pretty good here. Now, what I'm going to do, I'll wet my fingers a little bit. I'm going to take this peacock herl, and I'm just going to twist it. Not too much. You start twisting it like crazy, it's going to snap, because peacock herl is not particularly durable. But if I do some twists, I'm going to make it so that it's going to kind of give me the shape that I want. I'm going to lay it flat and hold that real tight with my fingers, and real quickly get a wrap on there to lock that in. So now my peacock is on the top of my fly, where I want it to be. It's even, it's not off center, and we're good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to lock that in and secure it with some wraps of the gold wire. Now, one of the things that we're going to want to do is take an initial wrap just to advance the wire up a little bit. And if I use all of my force as I come over the top, it's going to push that peacock herl down off the top of the fly. So what I'm going to do is when I go over the top, I'm going to hold off a little bit on the pressure that I'm putting on it, and then apply all the pressure downward. And that'll keep the peacock on top of the fly. It won't slide it all over on me. It'll leave it where I want it and give me the look that I'm shooting for here. So let's make some even touching wraps all the way up. And we'll get that tied off up here in the thorax. That's pretty much most of the tough stuff. We'll helicopter this wire off. Rest of the fly is pretty easy, just building up the thorax there. So there's our herl all secured. We got the ribbed look that we want. Everything's going good. Now, from here on out, you can do a number of different things. You could just put on a peacock collar and be done with it. There's a lot of different variations you can do with this fly. You can also put a flashback on it if you wanted to do that. At this point right now, I would tie in a piece of tinsel, much like you would do on like a flashback hare's ear. So however you want to work this is, it's entirely up to you. Really, really versatile fly. It's actually kind of fun to tie. I haven't tied it in years. So what we're going to do for this variation, I'm going to kind of copy that variation I saw on Instagram and kind of liked. So actually what kind of reminded me that I used to like this fly. So I got a little chunk of pheasant tail here, and I'm just going to slide that up behind the bead, collect the fibers with a loose wrap and get those all secured. Okay. All right, next order of business is our Peacock Thorax. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick out one I like here. I got some peacock eyes here. I am going to take some strands from the eye itself. Those are going to be some more sturdy, tighter barbules on the herl. Those are going to be the strands that I'm going to want to use. I don't want it to be super bushy. So I'm going to get those cut off. I'm going to use 2 of these. And I'm just going to slip those even tips right in there and get those secured. Now, when you wrap these, they're together right now, but eventually they're going to kind of come apart. So I'm just going to go make my first wrap. Now, I'm hoping you can kind of see that this, I don't know if that's going to wrap the way I want it. Yeah, see how the material is in front and the quill is in the back? So the more I wrap this, what's going to happen is that it's really just going to mash all the barbules down. So I kind of wrapped this in backwards. So instead of going to the back and going over the top, I'm going to angle this to the front and come over the top. And that'll kind of flip my herl around, make it sit the way that I want. See, now they're going to start separating, but when you tie in 2 at a time, that always happens. That's not really a problem. We'll just double it up in spots. Get a nice tight thorax of peacock. Yeah, that looks really neat. Yeah, I'm hoping that was kind of understood. When you take the herl off of the lower part of the peacock stem, you got barbules on both sides. Let's see if I can show you. So if I hold up this eye, if I pull out this piece of herl right here, see how you have all those fibers on both sides? So when you wrap it, it really doesn't matter. You just wrap it and you get the look that you get. But if you come up here to the eyes and you pull these out, you might have to flip it around. See on the back, there's no material. It's the bare quill. That's because on the back, it's the bare quill, and on the front, you get the material. So you only have material on one side of the quill. So when you wrap it, you got to make sure that it's pointing the right direction. All right, next order of business, again, is another optional thing. This fly doesn't have to have legs, but I saw it with legs, and I think it looked good. So I got a piece of split partridge here, and I'm just going to slide that partridge right over the front of the hook. I'm going to get those fibers collected with my fingers on both sides, nice and tight and even. Start with a loose wrap so I don't move them out of position, and then we'll tighten it up with 2 more. And then for the final step, I'm just going to take this, pull it back towards the front to get those legs the length that I want them. I don't want really long, prominent legs on this fly. So that's kind of what we're looking for there. So let's get a couple more tight wraps, get that secured in, get a wrap in front, and we'll slip in here with some arrow point scissors and get that cut off as close as we can possibly get it cut off. You can bury that point in there a little bit and really make that cutoff disappear. There we go. Okay, we'll take the wing case, we'll fold that over, loose wrap, keep it right on top, and then a couple of tight wraps. Now, this is a scary thing. Only do this if you're working sharp. You can obviously cut this with a pair of scissors if you want, but you're going to leave some excess. I like to just use a little razor blade. It's a little scary because if you slip with it, go too far, you could cut off your last step, and you kind of have to start those steps over. But if your razor blade's really sharp, it should come off pretty easy. So now what we'll do is we want this orange hot spot behind the bead. So I'm just going to take a couple of wraps and then get right into my whip finish. Okay, now again, I said there's a lot of different things you can do with this fly. Right now, technically, we're done. And there you go. There's your carrot nymph. And as I said, there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. This fly that I showed you in the beginning of the video had a little bit of a resin wing case, so I'll do that here as well. If you like it without it, you can leave it out. It really just depends. So this is going to be some thick Solares. Just get a layer on there to build up a little bit of her wing case. That looks good there. And we'll get in there a little bit with our torch. I think I've mentioned in previous videos, you know, I've got a bunch of torches here. I got a nice small one that I use that I picked up at a fly show one time, but I got a package of Solares that came with this particular torch. And I'll tell you, it's a little expensive, but man, is it worth it. It really, really cures that up good. The other torches I have, I always had to put them on a pool noodle and set them in the windowsill to get them to really cure up, but that's cured rock solid. So yeah, that torch makes a big difference. So that's pretty much it. That's a little bit of a different variation of a very easy nymph to tie. You could just do the body, the orange thread body and the peacock thorax. You could do the peacock over the back with no legs, with a resin wing case, without a resin wing case, a lot of different possibilities. But either way, it's a cool nymph. I've been tying this for years. Kind of forgot about it until I saw that post. I'll give credit to the post on my Instagram post, but that's pretty much it. Any questions or anything, as always, put them right in the comments, and appreciate it.